What's up guys, Balthier here. So, in tonight's episode of our newly released PlayStation 2 Unleashed, I bring you Final Fantasy XII, International Zodiac Job System. God damn it, the titles just keep getting bigger. And a little explanation about my Unleashed series, which is gonna last a long time, believe me. In it, I'll bring games running at very high resolutions, but instead of just doing, a straight gameplay, which would have been the easiest thing in the world, I decided to play, each game for a certain amount of time until I had enough interesting things to show. You're going to be seeing here that there's a lot of editing happening. And also, I decided to make a commentary to make it, things more interesting. So this isn't just, oh, okay, it's just another gameplay series, so what's new? So with that being said, go ahead, hit the like button, subscribe to this channel to help us grow, and let's get to it because there's a lot of good stuff to discuss about this masterpiece. And tonight is actually a special case because you see, with all of the games that I've brought you guys so far, I've played them and I've beaten them previously. However, with Final Fantasy XII, it's a very special occasion because I never played this game before. I mean, I did, over a decade ago, so going back to this was pretty much new. I didn't remember almost anything with the exception of a few characters. Final Fantasy XII so far has been impressing me in a very positive way. Because you see, to me, Final Fantasy has always been about, a series that's about serious tones with serious characters, with the occasional joke here and there to lighten things up a little bit, but it always dealt with very heavy stuff. However, when I played Final Fantasy Tactics in 1997, yes, I actually played it back when it was first released, it was the first time that I had contact with a game, a game that was rich in story, where things weren't black and white as most of the times they'd be in Final Fantasy games. You always had the leading characters, you had the good characters, then you had the villains, and maybe you'd meet some characters here and there who would be conflicted, like Shadow in Final Fantasy VI, but would end up turning out to be good. But in Final Fantasy Tactics, there were several groups, there were several parties who, even though they could be seen as evil or in the wrong side of the fight, you could still understand their reasons. You could still understand why they did so many things. In a way, it was like a playable version of Game of Thrones. I still remember the shock I felt after seeing so many scenes. And I used to think that, Delete is such a good guy, but, in the end, you see that he had a very clear goal he wanted to achieve. And the ways he used, the tools he used, the people he manipulated to achieve those goals, it was very different from what I was used to seeing. Now you may be asking yourself, well, Bama, is this video about Final Fantasy XII or Final Fantasy Tactics? The main reason why I mentioned Final Fantasy Tactics is because Final Fantasy XII has been handled by the same people, so much that if you've played Tactics and you begin playing this, you're gonna get a very distinct Final Fantasy Tactics feel to it. Because, you see, just like in the real world, things aren't so out in the open, so to speak, as we'd see in other Final Fantasy titles, as in, oh, you're evil, you're gonna pay, those guys are evil, we're gonna go after them, and there's the characteristic trade between villain and leading characters. And in real life, things are a little bit more veiled. They're not that in the open, it's not so blatant. So much that there's this scene right after Vane's speech where this merchant approaches Vane and he, presents an offering, some sort of beverage, I think, or whatever it was, and then he bows down to Vane. And then Vaughn, which is the leading character, he sees this, and then he says, I don't know how that man can do this. And then Penelo, who was besides Vaughn, she says, you don't understand why he does this. He doesn't do it because he wants to. That's politics. And of course, Vaughn is unable to accept this, he would never stand for something like this, but this alone shows the game's more complex narrative. And right now, we just saw Balthier, a sky pirate, on the screen. I believe he's one of the most stylish characters I've ever seen in a video game. And what I'm really enjoying so far about every single character in pure Final Fantasy fashion has been created with very distinct personalities. You have Balthier, who I'm gonna take a wild guess and say that he pretends he's wild going. You know, it's more like a facade. It's something he puts up. It's a front he puts up. And then you have Franz. She's the more stoic, driven, relentless of character. And you know, there's Vaughn, the good-hearted rascal. You have Penelo. She's like, you know, that young girl with the mother's heart. She's always looking out for Vaughn. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what Final Fantasy XII is going to bring me, because, you know, I'm one of the very few people who haven't played this game. You know, what this game is going to bring me in terms of story, because again, if this game is set in Ivalice, the same universe as Final Fantasy Tactics, and it's being handled by the same people, and you can see that it's being handled by the same people, you know, it has all that DNA, then I'm expecting the greatest of things in terms of story. And in there we see Ash, who's a very stoic type of character. I remember she used to play a very important role from what little I was able to see over 10 years ago. But now let's talk about the combat. To me, Final Fantasy XII has one of the best, you know, the bravest, the boldest combat systems I have ever seen in any JRPG. Because as you can see right here, you know, you saw on screen right now, things look like a little bit like MMO games. And I do believe that was done deliberately to capitalize, you know, on the audience, on the fans of the genre back then. But in here, you have something that's crucial to your combat system, which is the Gambit system. And in a nutshell, and I say nutshell because the Gambit system is very complex, but it's very intuitive too. What happens is you can lay out directives, you can lay out orders for every single one of your party members. For example, if a target is attacking the party leader, strike that target, or attack the same target as the party leader, attack enemy that's far away, or for example, you know, when things begin getting a little, actually a lot more interesting, fly enemy, use spell, and you also have defensive gambits as well. For example, if any character in your party reaches below a certain threshold of HP, let's say 50%, you can cast Cure, you can use items, you know, there's all sorts of things. You can use protective spells, you can use buffs, you can use debuffs, and there's an added layer of strategy here in that not only you get to assign multiple orders per character, but also you can assign their priorities. And it's basically a stacking game. Whatever orders are on the top of the list, they'll take priority over the ones at the bottom. So for example, if you have a healing character that's also going to attack, it's a very good idea to leave the healing gambits above attacking orders, so you know you don't end up attacking when you should be healing. And as a guy who enjoys the management side of things, you know, I've been having so much fun with creating different gambits, and you know, whenever I enter a new battle, I just do nothing. You know, I'll maybe sometimes move towards a certain character or away from, let's say, a very strong monster, but to see if my orders, if my gambits, they're really working. To me, you know, for people like me who enjoy strategizing things, this is amazing. This is awesome. And as you can see, of course, this game is running in 2K. I am running it on the PC SX2. And to be honest, I believe that this is the prettiest game I've ever seen on the PlayStation 2 so far. The way it looks, you know, running it in Quad HD, it's stunning. And also, since I'm playing... Oh my god, here we go again. Final Fantasy XII International Zodiac Job System. Why couldn't they make this name a little bit longer? You have a Zodiac type of job system, and as opposed to the game's original release, correct me if I'm wrong because it's been many years, you have this board where you would navigate spending combat points, and you'd be unlocking the ability to use new spells, new equipment, buffs like more strength, more HP, more MP, certain skills like I think it was called a Martyr, in which you would receive MP after taking damage. But in here, classes have been created. Again, Final Fantasy Tactics, with the difference being that, you know, unlike in FFT, you cannot change your class. You know, once you pick one, you're gonna go with that for the rest of the game. Now, this may sound counterintuitive because, you know, what's stopping a knight from training as a samurai? But from a game point design, you know, from a design perspective, I can't understand and appreciate this, I'm gonna call this challenge You know, it's a challenge because you'll need to see how your own strategies are gonna play out. Now, of course, they could blow up in your face. You know, that could happen. But I am the type of person who appreciates that type of tension. And, you know, did I make the right choice? You know, is this gonna blow up in my face? Or, you know, okay, maybe I should have turned Fran into a mage and now I'm getting my ass kicked on this boss. So, how am I gonna make ends meet with my current setup? I've always loved this type of thing. But anyway, that's all I've got for tonight. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you've played Final Fantasy XII, then let me know your impressions about it. Remember, no spoilers, okay? This is still my very first playthrough. And leave a comment. Remember to hit the like button, subscribe, take care of yourself, and I'll see you next time. Balmut out.